We need a revolution. It's no secret that the impacts of climate change are increasing exponentially. Our planet is heating up, extreme weather is now the norm, biodiversity is declining. Our waste and plastic problems are worse than ever before. Thankfully, governments, multi-billion-dollar conglomerates, and highly qualified scientists are working on breakthrough technology to help combat climate change. Direct air capture is one of these technologies whereby a machine directly removes greenhouse gases right from the air. Once captured, these greenhouse gases are converted into a form that can no longer do damage to our planet. Geoengineering is another promising solution. Cloud whitening is one form of geoengineering whereby tiny particles are sprayed into the atmosphere to block the energy of the sun from reaching the Earth, thereby reducing its ability to heat our planet. Direct air capture and geoengineering will likely be cutting-edge solutions, giving us a real shot at slowing down or even reversing the effects of climate change. But if you're like me, you might feel intimidated and overwhelmed, and even slightly fearful that the future rests on new technology that may or may not come to fruition in time. For regular people that are creating the greenhouse gas problem, people like you and me, consumers of single-use plastics and fast fashion, jet-setting around the world so we can live our best life, do we just continue as is and hope these technologies will mature in time? Even though we don't have an official seat at the table, can we make a positive impact today? Absolutely. I started Clever Carbon for a simple reason: to help leverage our voices as consumers and raise carbon footprint literacy so we can build a world where everyone can make clever carbon decisions. Our strategy is simple, elegant, and revolution-worthy. Let's talk about the first part of the Clever Carbon strategy, leveraging our voices as consumers. While individually, we may not have limited influence collectively, together we hold tremendous power because we are consumers. Our needs and desires fuel the wealth and growth that governments and conglomerates seek. Consumer goods, brands, airlines, restaurants, services, companies will go to any length to keep consumers, that's you and me, happy. They want to know what we like and what we don't like in hopes that we will consume their product and consume more of it. And consumers are already using their voice and creating change. We've been telling brands and manufacturers that we care about our health and the environment, and as a result, we see certifications and labels on products like Rainforest Alliance certified, certified organic, or biodegradable packaging. These are huge wins for us. Manufacturers are listening, and the work consumers have started has laid a strong foundation for the Clever Carbon strategy. Now, let's talk about the second part of the strategy, raising carbon footprint literacy. So, what is carbon footprint anyways? Some of you may have heard of the term before. It's pretty much a buzzword these days, but let's take a step back. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas that is emitted when we burn fossil fuels like coal or natural gas. Carbon footprint is a measure of the amount of carbon dioxide released when fossil fuels are burned and has long been used as a measure of environmental impact. The lower the carbon footprint, the better. What most people don't realize is that normal people like you and me all have a carbon footprint too, not just governments and manufacturers. The banana we had for breakfast, the workout we did on the Peloton, the hot shower we took after, fossil fuels were likely burned at some point during these activities. For the banana, it's the fuel that was used to transport it from the field to the warehouse and the warehouse to the grocery store. For the Peloton ride and hot shower, it's the electricity that was consumed. These activities all have a carbon footprint, and therefore you have a carbon footprint. It's not necessarily good nor bad, it's just a fact. For consumers, All we need to know is that carbon footprint is a number, and when we have numbers, we can make comparisons. Think of calories, grams of sugar or fat. Those are all numbers that will allow us to make comparisons when we're making a purchasing product or decision. Let's talk more about carbon footprint and numbers. In the US, the average annual carbon footprint per person is approximately 17.5 tons. 1 ton is simply 1,000 kilograms. If you live in Vietnam or the United Kingdom, the average annual footprint is 2.1 and 8.3 tons respectively. As you can see, our individual footprint can vary greatly depending on where we live, and this is due to a few reasons. In the country that you live in, on average, how do people typically commute? Do they walk, use public transportation, or drive? The diet they consume, is it mostly meat or plant-based? The hours people fly, the single most important driver of carbon footprint for those who have access. The type of energy you used to power your homes, renewable or fossil fuel derived, and the amount of shopping they do, whether it's buying new clothes or electronics as an example. You may be wondering now, what is my personal carbon footprint? A simple internet search will identify many carbon footprint calculators you can try out, and I highly encourage you to do so. So, how does carbon footprint tie into the Clever Carbon strategy? And how will it create a revolution? It comes down to carbon labeling. As a consumer, we leverage many inputs to make a purchasing decision. There's price, brand, customer experience, and quality, to name a few. But I want to be able to make clever carbon decisions. That means decisions that minimize the impact I have on the planet or products with a lower carbon footprint. Additionally, I want to set carbon footprint goals for myself, but first I need to know what my carbon footprint is. At the time of this talk, my annual carbon footprint was approximately 11.8 tons of carbon dioxide. If I divide that by 365 days, that's 32.3 kilograms daily. Just like I can quantify the amount of calories I consume per day, I want to quantify my carbon footprint per day and set goals for myself. This may sound far-fetched, but we're closer to this reality than you might think, thanks to companies like Oatly and Allbirds. Oatly is a hip oat milk manufacturer based out of Sweden, and Allbirds is a hip apparel company based in San Francisco. Both companies have started publishing their carbon footprint per product directly on their website or product packaging. In other words, they've started carbon labeling. A carton of oat milk from Oatly is 0.48 kilograms of carbon dioxide in the United Kingdom, and a pair of Allbirds running shoes is 9.0 kilograms. Now, the question is, what is the footprint of oat milk by a different manufacturer, or the footprint of dairy, soy, or almond milk? What is the footprint of a pair of Nike, Asics, or Adidas running shoes? Wouldn't it be great if you could pick up products and compare their footprint, just like we compare nutritional content? What's key to carbon labeling is that brands are publishing an actual number that is measured just like calories. There's not a certification, a high, low, or medium equivalent, or some sort of scale, but what the raw numbers are so that consumers like you and me can make an apples-to-apples comparison between products, just like we can today with nutritional information. It doesn't need to be perfect, we just need to start the movement. Perhaps most importantly, carbon labeling will create a level of transparency and accountability for manufacturers in a way that was never possible before, and as a result, in addition to competing on price, quality, or brand, companies will also be incentivized to compete on impact. More specifically, creating products and services with a lower carbon footprint. If Allbirds can make a shoe with a carbon footprint of 9.0 kilograms, we can be sure that when other brands start publishing their carbon footprint per shoe, all eyes will be on how close or far from 9.0 kilograms their products are. Carbon labeling could be the largest revolution that the fight against climate change has yet to see. With companies like Oatly and Allbirds have already starting the movement, we can be sure that more and more companies will be following suit. So, how do we accelerate the carbon labeling movement? First of all, become carbon literate. Take a carbon footprint quiz. There's many on the internet, and follow accounts on social media that focus on carbon footprint and sustainability related content. Next, use your voice. When you're on Instagram and a brand launches a new product, leave a comment. It would be great to know what the carbon footprint of your product is. Repeat for all other types of products, services, and food establishments. Yes, a burrito has a carbon footprint as well, and someday you may walk into any fast food joint and see the footprint of each item on the menu, just like we see calories now. Ask and you shall receive. Next, use your voice as a consumer to reward good behavior. For example, if a hotel has eliminated single-use plastic toiletries, call that out in your review and encourage them to continue making lower impact switches. Be relentless on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Amazon reviews, Google reviews, any public forum at any time and always. But also, be positive and kind, because that's the best way to motivate change. At Clever Carbon, we believe that revolutions can be simple and powerful. While we wait for direct air capture and geoengineering technologies to mature and scale, let's get our revolution started.